it's Michelle here at God's Baker, and a couple of you have asked for what we refer to as hive inspection videos. You want to see the bees, you want to know what goes on inside these. I have to get in them today and do a little bit of housekeeping anyway, and I kind of want to check on how they're doing going into this fall weather. And we're supposed to be in like a what they call a fall flow, where the bees are bringing in goldenrod and a lot of other things that are actually in bloom right now. You see the goldenrod is yellow, it's a weed. So we want to see how they're doing with that, what kind of pollen they're bringing in, what kind of numbers they have. I'm going to be putting in, here's my smoker getting in my face here, blowing this way. We're going to be placing some mite boards, and I'm going to tell you about that just in a second. So I just kind of wanted to take you to one of my passions. Obviously, I'm uploading this to Mass Fate 3 and Resistance Chicks and probably Facebook and anybody who wants to take a gander with me into the hives, because it's a passion and I love it, and I want to be able to share it with you guys, because most of the time I'm out here by myself and I'll get an eye on the queen and I watch how beautifully she dances about the frame, and I'm kind of hoping that we'll be able to see one of the queens in one of these hives. I'm boosting my sunlight. It's not too late to get in them, but it's not as bright out as I would like. It took me a little while to get everything set up. So my hives have, well, except for the two nukes that we have on the end, I'll talk about those in a little bit. They have what is called a screened bottom board. That's very self-explanatory. The very bottom of the hive has a screen in it so that dirt, not really dirt, but hive waste fall through the screen and not be in the hive anymore. Now, what I'm going to do with these, this is literally, they're just like yard signs here. I was a bad beekeeper. The last time I pulled them, I didn't clean them, so I had to clean them before I got started. Oh, shoot. Well, I might have to have Leah do this for me. Leah, she's gone. All right, we're gonna do improv actually, because usually people use cooking spray. I've got this oil here for mite traps. Really, you just want to put oil on the bottom of these. I'm just gonna use probably this will work. A weed, if I can get it out of the ground here, to kind of just spread it around. And the idea is, what are hive mites? Because if you're just watching this here with Michelle, you have no idea if you're not a beekeeper. Mites are something that get into the hive, and they're awful. They're called tracheal mites, and they're really, 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 really bad. And what they do is they attach themselves to the bees' backs, and they're literally like as round as this, 12 inches in diameter, maybe even bigger, and they attach themselves to the bodies of the bees, and they can transfer diseases this way, and it's really, really awful for the hive. So what I'm doing here is, now that I've coated this with oil, I'm going to insert this in a slot below the screened bottom board here. So I'm hoping I can get this. There we go. So here's this slot right here, and I'm just inserting this right here into the bottom of this hive, and the mites are going to go in, or going to land on the bottom there, and I'm going to come back in 3 days, and I'm going to do a mite check, and I'm going to count the mites, and then you can count how many drop per day, obviously by dividing by 3. Then you can know what kind of mite count you have in your hive. So there is a certain number that is acceptable. Obviously, if you get your board out and you count like 300 mites, then you've got a real big problem. I'm comfortable when I count like 20 or 30 per day. I think that that's kind of acceptable. And the reason why I say acceptable is because I don't really like to treat my hives with mites with anything that isn't natural. I just use like thyme essential oil. I'm probably going to bring my diffuser out here and kind of let it sit underneath. That's a Michelle original idea. And let it sit underneath and kind of just put that thyme oil underneath there because the mites don't like it. The reason why I don't like to treat, even with things that are natural, is because anything that goes into the hive, bees have this smell, this sense of smell that's just incredible. And just this peanut oil that I'm using here, which that's what I'm using, by the way. I didn't have any mineral oil with me right now, but even something like peanut oil, they'll be able to smell it and it can kind of disrupt the hive. So I do my very best to not disturb if I don't have to. Obviously, if you have to, it's better to disturb than to not. So we do what we can, but I don't like to use chemicals and things like that in my hives. Our friend Andrew has come and he's done treatments with mineral oil that he's fogged in here, which you have to do that in a regime there as they kind of hatch out of the brood. Brood is where the larva is. So as they hatch out of the brood, then they fall. So as they hatch out, you have to do it for their life cycle, I guess you want to say. So I'm going to put this in the bottom of that one, and since I don't have a film crew here, you're going to have to be okay with me moving all this stuff about so that you can see inside and what I'm doing. I had thought about just doing this pre-recorded, but then I was like, you know what? I'm just going to let you guys be here for the whole thing, hanging out in the bee yard with Michelle. So, first things first, I work with gloves. There are a lot of people that don't work with gloves. In our bee club, those guys are tough. I'm not that tough, so I'm all about the gloves. If they're watching this, y'all are beasts, and this is the first hive we're gonna get into, and I hope that you're gonna be able to see. If not, I'll have to lower it down. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my smoker right here, and I'm gonna smoke underneath. Even though I already put this, I should have this prior to putting that board in there, but the cracks are enough. In theory, and it's not really a theory, it's what they say, what all the people say, know what they're talking about here. Let me get it back on camera here. They say that with the smoke, what it does is it makes the bees think that there's a fire. And so they start preoccupying themselves by consuming the honey to leave. Like, it's kind of like you would gather up all your most valuable possessions and leave the house. So that's what is happening when they get the smoke. I think it's more than that. That's just my theory, because it does seem to calm them down. I try not to actually use too much smoke because I don't think it's good for them to breathe in. It's not good for us to breathe in. So a lot of times what I do is I bring out with me a little bottle here of, this is sugar water that has some essential oils in it, and it emits a smell and it kind of distracts them all and they want to go for it. So this is what I try to use as opposed to a smoker when they're being calm and so on and so forth. But I thought for today I'd go ahead and use the smoker just so you guys could see how most everybody else does it. So, without further ado, now you may hear an expression called cracking open the hives. Did you hear that? How it was a little bit tough for me to get in there? That's because they get tree resin, and it's called propolis, and they take it and they use it as pretty much a glue to seal up the hive. Now, if you were a construction worker, you might consider it great stuff, minus all of the air and so we're cracking open the hives because they've sealed it off for weather and also for intruders like ants and so on and so forth. I've had to deal with ants, so I always bring out with me a jar of diatomaceous earth, and I put it around the top. You can see it kind of falling off of around the edges there. So the first thing I want to show you is this is called the inner cover right here. Now the inner cover is really just designed by a man named Langstroth. This whole hive here was designed by him. And it's to make sure that you can get into the hive and you can kind of see what's going on without having to disturb everybody. All right, so that's the inner cover. And what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna set it to the side here. And I like to stagger when I'm stacking like that, because we are gonna pull out all of these boxes. Well, just these two. But before we do, let's get in and see what's going on in here. Now, I kind of actually want to show you what's going on in here before I pull a frame, because I am going to pull a frame. So you can kind of get a feel. I don't know if you can tell, but this is what's called a cluster. All of the bees are kind of in here, right there. So I'm going to guess that the queen is laying right in there, and that's where a lot of the bees are. Now, I don't know if you can get a feel for the fact that these bees are pretty calm. They're not really acting up. They're not making noises. They're kind of cool. So I'm going to tell right off the bat that they probably don't have too much going wrong with them, which is always a good thing. When you open up one of these and all of a sudden you hear a big roar, whatever, like, you know something's up. So you want to listen, and then as soon as you open up the hive, you want to start looking. I'm looking for hive beetles. I'm just kind of getting a feel for the size of the bees. These bees some of them look a little bit small to me, but if this is the brood area, it could just be because they're younger. So before I do anything, I'm going to squirt some of my sugar water here. Why? I'm going to give these girls some busy work, just to kind of distract them. It's just a thing that I do. Other beekeepers don't do this. It's a Michelle thing. Well, some do, but it just kind of makes me feel good when I do. Because they smell that yummy smell, and they know that because I've been in here, it's, again, you can tell that these girls are really, really calm, which I love to not hear, I guess you should say, the noise that you're not hearing, the calmness. So first thing first, what am I seeing in here? Not a whole lot. We're just seeing some bees hanging out on an empty frame, which that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. I have been feeding. I'm going to just kind of set this off to the side. I'll show you guys a frame that has more bees on it. Now, when I pulled this one out, I probably could have given that other one a little bit deeper look to make sure the queen wasn't on there. But with this one for sure that I'm pulling out, because I already suspect that the brood is up here, I'm going to be looking for that queen. So before I hand this off to show you guys, I'm just looking. Now, what else am I looking for? I'm looking to see how much pollen they're bringing in, and I'll show that to you guys as well. I'm looking to see mites on the bees. I'm looking to see eggs. So on this side of this frame, they're bringing in nectar. And on this side of the frame, we have what we call capped brood, okay? Do you see the yellowish, let's see if I can do this one-handed, the kind of yellowish capped looking things underneath of there? That means that there's larvae in there and they've been capped over, and they should hatch out shortly. Now, I'm not sure if my camera is going to be able to capture that milky looking thing. I wish this would not focus, get out of focus there. Those are other little larvae that haven't been capped over yet. Okay, so I'm going to drop this back in here, make everybody happy, very gently. Everything that you do with the bees should be done with precision and gentleness. So I'm taking this is one of my hive tools. This is called a J tool. I really like this one because it has this kind of J hook on there, and you can use it to get underneath the frame like that, and you want to loosen it up because there's propolis everywhere. And you're going to loosen it up again. Oops, I'm getting stuck to this other frame here. On this end as well. And again, I'm going to be real careful because we know there's larvae in here. And I want to make sure that there's no queen. Now, this frame is really a lot heavier than the last one. All right. So you guys can look on that side while I look on this side, and I'm looking for the queen because I want to be able to show her to you guys. But what you're looking at there as these bees are all dancing about is capped brood, and there's some pollen mixed in there. There's little bits of larvae, and there is nectar all throughout. Now, why is that? Because they use that to feed the larvae. These bees that are on this frame are called nurse bees. These are the youngest bees in the hive. They hatch out, and their job immediately is to take care of the eggs and the larva and the queen to make sure that everybody is properly fed and taken care of. So I didn't see the queen on that one. It's possible and probable that she might have gone down because when we open up the hive, a lot of times the queen likes to go downstairs to where it's dark. So she may be in the box below. All right. So the youngest bees, that are the nurse bees, take care of everybody in the hive. And then at like week 4 of their life, where when they're flying, they only live about 6 weeks, they become flyers. They get their wings. Now, technically they fly before that, but they do start taking test flights prior to that. And again, this is another really heavy frame of brood. We've got capped brood everywhere. We've got eggs and larvae throughout, which is a sign of a queen. So speaking of that queen, I'm still looking for her. Now, these nurse bees are the bees that are going to raise out bees that live the winter. Now, I just told you that the bees live for 6 weeks. That's during flying season. They will live through the winter, in the winter, because they're saving their mileage and they can live longer. So I'm not seeing the queen on here. But as a beekeeper, you're looking for evidence of there being a queen by looking for eggs and larvae and making sure that the hive isn't going crazy, because when she's not in there, she's not emitting her pheromone. And when she's not emitting her pheromone, they're upset and they know that something needs to be done. So a lot of times they'll raise out a new queen if they can catch that she's not good or gone prior, like within a few days of laying eggs. So looks like on this frame we're just bringing in nectar, which is good. That's a good sign. We like nectar. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to gently push all of these frames back, so that I can put that other frame back in. Now, the reason why I took that other frame out is because every gap that you see here is called bee space. The bees have a certain kind of space that they like, and Mr. Langstroth did his mathematics and his research and found out what their ideal preferred bee space was, and he designed Langstroth Hive accordingly to make it easier for us as beekeepers to get honey. Because prior, if you were using like a Skype or Skep or however I don't even know how to say it, you had to pretty much lose all that honeycomb that you took because of the way that they had done it. So this way you can reutilize the honeycomb, and it's great for the bees. because it takes them, I'm not good with numbers, but a ridiculously intense amount of pollen collecting in order for their bodies to be able to make enough wax for honeycomb. So I'm going to pop down into this lower box just because I want to see what's going on down here. A little inspection would do, and I wouldn't need to take this box off. There's so far, so good. Yeah. There we go. Make those girls a little bit happier. They look pretty calm. They look pretty calm. Now, the girls on the box that I had put here on this inner cover just now started to make a lot of noise. They were getting upset and they were starting to do what's called nasonoving, and they raised their hind end up in the air because they're, wait a minute, we've been away from the queen too long. We're not, you know, we can smell her, but what if some bees are lost? And they start raising their hind end in the air and flapping all their pheromones about, kind of in an emergency situation type thing. My friend Andrew had taught me that, which is a really fascinating thing that they do. Bees love to take care of each other. If one comes back covered in whatever, they will clean her up if they can salvage her. So that's just a really neat thing. So I'm gonna guess, with the noise that they're making up there, that the queen is down in here because they're upset, missing their lady, and they can tell that fast if she's gone, because she emits that scent, that pheromone hormone scent. So this particular hive, and it's this way with most of my hives, I think, although like I said, I haven't been in them enough to know, but they definitely need more food. Beekeepers will always tell you you can't count on the fall flow. And so I had been feeding prior to the fall flow, and then I stopped to give them a chance to bring in real pollen and nectar. But from what I'm looking at least in this hive, I may start feeding again, because right now, I will start feeding again, because right now is when they start setting up for winter. They need to have a good amount of stores going into winter so that they don't starve. So the first frame that I'm pulling out here, I'm not really, well, I pulled the other one out, but this first real frame that was just below the brood box or brood area, I'm not seeing a whole lot on there. So there's that. I'm not seeing the queen. And if we don't see her in this box, if daylight permits, we'll get in the next hive, because I need to anyway, and we'll see if we can find her in that one. Because I really want you guys to be able to see how she moves about. So this frame is a little bit heavier, and that's another thing. You kind of look for heaviness. How heavy are these frames? That'll tell you if it's got stuff in it. Now this frame is really, really dark, because this frame, you can tell it's been used several times by the nurse bees to hatch out eggs and larvae and bees. So we'll get in one more, and ideally my brood box would be, or my brood area chamber would be in this lower box where I really don't have anything, much of anything. All of the eggs would be on these deeper frames, and the empty part would be on top, and the lower part would be where all of the eggs and stuff are. But let me go ahead and move these back. I'm kind of a firm believer in, when possible, letting the girls do what they want to do. So rather than switch these boxes out, if I did anything, I would probably just remove this bottom box, which, oh, there's a leaf, which I probably will do, just not today, because in order to remove the box, I got to get all the bees off of these frames. So, again with the bee space, just going to kind of shove these back to keep the space proper. And then I'm going to gently get this box. Again, anytime you set it on top of something, you kind of have to crack it back open because that propolis sticks to everything. So here we go. Now you want to kind of make sure, give it a little bit of a tiny bounce, get a chance for any bee that's underneath there to get out so you don't squish her, because you might squish the queen. It's very rare that she's around the edges like that. She might be, so. And then I'm going to put the inner cover that still has bees on it back on, like that. And I'm actually going to go ahead and put a little bit more diatomaceous earth around the edge, just because I hate ants. I hate them. I hate them. I hate them. I hate them. I dislike them very much from when it comes to my bees. So we're going to gently, now what else? This right here is a spacer. It's designed to let the moisture out, because if the moisture builds up, it's really bad for the hive. You can get mold problems in the summer, and you can get death, yes, death, in the winter. So we're going to move this right here to set this up for our next hive. I think I might tilt, oh, that's good. So again, I'm going to go ahead and use my smoker, even though I already put that bottom board in there. And my hive tool, I'm going to crack open this one. If I can get it open. I have to crack it open from the front. Yep. Now, why do I work the beehives from the back? I work them from the back because they're flying in from the front, and I don't want to get in their way as they're trying to do their job. I want to be as least amount as intrusive as possible. So I like to work from the back of the hives. I think obviously most beekeepers do as well. Now, you can already tell this hive has a lot more numbers in it. There's bees everywhere, and I kind of want to get this camera a little bit closer so you guys can really get a good, let me set this here as close as I can, and then I'll adjust this accordingly. Let's see if that does it. There, I think that's much better. I hope you can see. So I've got that tilted such that I can't really see the comments. So I apologize about that. So these bees, right off the bat, they're calm enough, but I think just because they have bigger numbers, they're a little bit more, they're not as calm as the other hive. But like I said, I'm just giving them some of this sugar water stuff to be distracted by. Now, one thing about beekeeping, and I do want to preface this for this video, and I probably should have put it at the beginning, but if you want to get an opinion on how to keep bees, and you talk to 10 different beekeepers, you will get 10 or 20 different answers. Everybody has an opinion, and beekeepers are very nice, don't get me wrong. They're very nice. But a lot of them are know-it-alls, and they are convinced that the way that they keep bees is the only way to keep bees, and if you don't keep bees that way, you're an idiot. I just love my bees, and so far what I'm doing seems to be working, and I've had some amazing mentors and people to help me, and I've kind of gleaned from it all, and then at the end of the day, I just go with my gut and let God lead me, and my bees tell me what they think they want. So, this top box is, and I just know it's, I'm actually not going to pull a frame out here. This top box is just, excuse me, little girl, pollen, nectar and honey. So I'm not going to get into these, only because it's not necessary, and I want them to keep working and doing what they're doing. So we're gonna take this box off once I get it cracked open here, and I can tell you they're getting a little bit irritated with me, and I think it's just the time of day, but we still have some time before they start to get really upset. So I can also tell what's going on by how heavy this box is. That box tells me that they're doing a good job bringing in stuff for the winter, which I'm really, really happy about. So right away, the next thing I'm doing is I'm looking. So I'm going to pull this up so that I can let you guys look a little bit closer as well here at what's going on. Just get a feel for what the hive looks like, what a beekeeper sees from the top. You see how they connected that? I'm probably going to disconnect that, that cross combing there. So let's maybe start with that frame. So I'm just going to kind of stick my hive tool down in there, disconnect it. Now, when I talk about bee space, it's so funny because, you know, beekeepers have talked to me about bee space a lot, and inevitably, no matter what I do, they will move these frames to whatever space suits them. Now, already, I'm pleased because this frame has a good weight to it. So I can tell that they've brought in, I don't know if you can see the shimmer there, in there. You see how that's shimmering inside? That's nectar that they will eventually use their dehumidifying abilities to work down to the proper moisture level. Let's see where I want to put this. I think I'm going to put this over here, so that it turns into honey. The bees will not cap over their nectar. Now here, they're getting upset at me again. So let's see if I got any smoke left in here. Not much. Let me put something. So what I'm going to do here, because I don't like that there's kind of like sparks flying out, is I'm just putting some greenery every time we go to a bee meeting. Bob tells us you don't want to put sparks in the hive. Well, he's right. So all right, and you also don't want it to be too hot. I mean, it's hot, don't get me wrong. So I'm just giving them a little tiny little puff just to say chill out. And I'm also going to give them a little squirt of my stuff here that has, like I said, it has essential oils in it, so you can smell that. Now, you don't have to pull out every frame unless you're doing a total hive inspection, but I can tell that we've got a good amount of nectar flow coming into the hive, which is a good sign. And what I want to do is get past this frame of honey, which maybe I'll pull that and show it to you guys, to see if the queen is laying up in this box. Okay, Oh yeah, it's not a frame of honey, that's a frame of brood. Look at that, that's beautiful. That's what we call a really beautiful brood pattern. Now the reason this is lighter than some is, like I said, the more this gets used, the darker the honeycomb will be, only for the reason that they kind of create these little cocoons inside there. So another thing I can show you, watch out, I can set this corner down so that I can, come on, I don't want to squish anybody, I just want to switch hands. Show you guys what, do you see those? Do you see how those are a little bit bigger than the ones in the center? Those are drones, those are male bees. All the other ones that are flatter, you see how over here on this side, those are more drones? The queen will lay either a fertilized egg or an unfertilized egg. A fertilized egg will be, and I didn't see her on here, by the way. Based on the size of the comb hole that she's laying in. So if it's a big hole, she'll lay a drone, an unfertilized egg, a male egg. If it's a smaller hole, she will drop a fertilized egg. Don't ask me how she does it. I don't know. I just know that she does. So we have some uneven comb here, which I'm not that worried about. It's just, So now my glove just got stung here. Now I didn't, but my glove did. I could tell by the way that she was wiggling to get off. So what I do is I literally take my essential oil sugar water and spray it on my glove and wave my hand in front of my smoker to get rid of that smell. When we smell that another bee has died or that another bee has stung something, set off an alarm. Intruder, danger, very bad. And I don't want that. I don't want them setting off an alarm. Again, beautiful, beautiful brood pattern. Look at that. From the very top of this deep frame all the way to the bottom. This is my saskatraz queen. She's a specific type. I've got a hybrid saskatraz queen in the hive next to me. But I am very pleased, very pleased. Look at, those are all baby bees. Those are all gonna hatch out and be beautiful. Now, I doubt very seriously that she's on this frame. Now, why is that? Because this is all capped brood. I'm gonna find her most likely on a frame where there's a lot of fresh eggs. Now, so see how, I don't know if you guys got to see that, but this bee was on my thumb and I just was really slow about it. Just take my time. Don't have to move fast, because when a bee stings any part of my clothing, my veil, my glove, or whatever, and that stinger gets stuck in there, she flies away and the stinger stays and she dies. And that's no fun for her or for me. So we want to just take our time. All right, so what I'm looking at here is some larvae, some nectar, some capped brood. I'm not seeing the queen here. And I'll pull one more frame, and then we're going to close up this hive, and I'm probably going to sign off, even though I do need to get into these other ones, but it's getting dark and I want to be able to do it quickly. So, pull one more frame, and hopefully these girls aren't getting too irritated with me, because I like to maintain our friendship. I want them to know that we can coexist, and that when I get inside here, purely out of curiosity and helpfulness, and not because I'm trying to harm them. So again, we have more beautiful brood and all that shiny stuff in between. Actually, I haven't flipped over to that side. That's all. That's a lot of larvae in there. There's probably eggs in there as well. Not seeing the queen, although this is a frame that she would likely be on. How do I know the queen from the rest of them? Well, that's why I wanted to show her to you, so you guys would be able to see it too. But she's bigger. Her body is longer, and she's bigger. Her wings are longer, and she has a larger, what I like to call is dot. Again, if I was more of a scientific person, I would know what it is. They've got this round spot on their backs where their wings attach to, and hers is much bigger. And oh, see, we lost another one. So I'm going to take that stinger out. I don't know if you can see it. You're not going to be able, oh yeah, you can. So I'm taking that stinger out. Why? Because it can sting me through my glove even after it's already been, it's like a thorn, right? So I'm going to take that off, put my hive tool away, spray my glove, and put it in front of this. And I'm going to give them a little bit of a puff here, just for the sake of it, because I'm working them in the evening. And now we're going to gently and slowly push these back in. Now, the reason I'm going slowly is because a damaged queen can be devastating for a hive. And because there's brood up here, and she's likely up here, well, even if I didn't think she was likely up here, I'd still be gentle. But I think mentally I'm more gentle knowing that she's probably up here. I don't want to squish her. So I want to give her plenty of time as I'm moving these back to get out of the way. And now I can kind of, let's see, which one was this that we pulled out? All right, that's the right one. So we're going slowly back together. We're maintaining our bee space. Keeping everybody happy. All right. Now, they'll be way happier once I close them all up. But this is a hefty frame. This is good. They're pulling in a good amount of nectar. I wish it was more. But like I said, I am going to start feeding. How am I going to start feeding? I'm going to start feeding. I've got a 5-gallon bucket method that I do far away so we don't have robbing issues where they start robbing each other. And I fill it with a sugar water mix and some essential oils that are healthy for the hive, and also like lemongrass attracts them. I use some wintergreen and spearmint oil, sometimes peppermint, sometimes tea tree oil to help with diseases and so on. So I've got a lot of bees around here. I don't really want them there when I put this box back on. So I'm going to just give them a little puff of smoke, and that's going to help them to go back down in to the hive. And then I've got to carefully, now these bees, I'm going to show you this, even though they're upset and I hate it, but that's the nasonoving. You see how they're putting their hind ends in the air, releasing their pheromone, just in case any bee is lost and can't find their way back. Because here's the deal, guys. I'm working in the brood chamber. And because I'm working in the brood chamber, like I talked about, all those nurse bees, many of them have never flown or been out of the hive before. So, if they fall on the ground or they get out of the hive, how are they supposed to find their way back? Well, their sisters raise their little hinds in the air and release their pheromone and let everybody know this is how you get back. So, we're going to gently put this inner cover back on. And for the heck of it, just to say I'm sorry that I had to disturb you people. I'm gonna give them some more of my little sugar water. They'll literally have that cleaned up in a matter of seconds once I put this lid on here. It's amazing. They can get rid of, excuse me, little girl, that 5-gallon bucket. These 5 hives, which my 2 nukes I count as a hive each, they can get rid of that 5-gallon bucket in like 2 days. So we're gonna put this other top cover on slowly. Gently, just kind of bouncing it, letting them know pressure's coming. Get out of the way of the edges. And bada bing, bada boom. And now it gets a little bit more quiet because everybody's happier that it's all closed up. So I hope that you guys have enjoyed this hive demonstration, hive inspection with me. Yes, it has taken 45 minutes, but I'm usually out here for an hour when I go through them and stuff. So I hope to do more of these and just kind of give you guys updates on how each of these little hives are doing as I get time. But now that my phone works, I can actually do this. So having the new phone is really, really, really going to expand what I can do, because my phone just die. And so when I do my Bible studies and so forth, I was using an older phone that I could at least do Wi-Fi on. All right, you guys, we love you. God loves you. God bless. Remember, it's not just a conspiracy theory if it's actually the truth. So join us next time here at God's Little Acre for many of our activities. I do need to do a farm tour, and we do need to give you a tour of the deck. So those are on the list. You can look forward to those. So God bless, guys.